Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a quick process video for you today. I am going to be covering this pocket journaling Bible from Bythewell4God, the kit that came out with the October Twisted Scripture kit. So I'm just kind of showing you, I went through, pulled out the Bible, kind of broke the spine a little bit, opened it up. Here are all the journaling cards and stickers that come with it. Of course, you get your end papers, you get some directions, and then you get several pieces of fabric that coordinate well that you can use to cover your Bible. There are two full-size sheets of fabric here that you can use. There's this the one with all the kind of like mushrooms and florals, and then there's just that bright red. I'm going to go ahead and use this patterned one, and then of course there's a long skinny one that you could use as a closure as well if you wanted to. So as always, I'm going to go ahead and kind of dry fit this before I start gluing anything down, just to make sure I have enough fabric on both sides. And I have covered these multiple times on my channel, so I'm sorry if these if this is redundant. These are one of those projects that I just really look forward to doing. They're simple and they're quick, and I really like using them for like sermon notes or just very specific projects that I have in mind. And so I really like these little pocket Bibles. So I'm going to add a little bit of this kind of contrasting fabric here, just around a little bit of the spine, just to give it a little bit more interest. You could, there's about a billion different ways that you can wrap these. But I always just kind of like having that extra little interest there around the spine. So what I'm going to do is start with the back cover. This is what I always use. I'm using a Cocoina glue stick. This is a starch-based adhesive. You'll notice that it smells like almonds. And typically you can also get this in a paste as well, in a tube, but you can also get it in these glue sticks, and they work really well. It dries quickly, but it gives you enough working time to be able to do this. So I just kind of work in sections. I did the back cover. I'm going to come around the spine, and then I will do the front cover as well. Like I said, it gives you enough kind of working time. I've noticed though that like as I get closer to the end of my glue stick, it gets just a little goopier and stickier, if that's possible. I don't know why. My Yoo-hoo glue stick does the same thing. So I don't know what it is about glue sticks that do that, but I'm going to go ahead and add this accent fabric here around the spine using that same glue stick. I'm just kind of holding it in place, adding the glue around the front and the spine, and then I will hold that in place while I do the back cover as well. And then now that I have that done, I'm going to focus on doing the wrapping. But the first thing that I want to do is kind of trim up this fabric just a little bit. So this was kind of sticking off the edge. This piece was just a little bit longer. So I'm just trimming that down, and then I'm making some V-shape cuts at the beginning and the end of the text block. This is just going to help this so that I can wrap this a little bit better. And then that little section will get tucked down into the spine. So I'm actually going to trim that down a little bit, because the less fabric that I have to stick down there, the better. And then for all four corners, I'm just cutting a little bit of this excess fabric here. It'll just make wrapping it a little bit easier, and it makes it so it's not so bulky when you are kind of pleating the fabric around. So just kind of helps to get rid of that, a little bit of that excess. So with all of that prepped, I can go in. I'm going to do the long side first. I'm just adding the glue, and you can see this very sticky. So this fabric just sticks right down. And then I'm going to do the top, and I'm going to kind of pull this around and then kind of pleat the corner here. I actually did this one a little bit weird. I don't really know. I don't really know what I was thinking, but I just added a little bit of glue and then pleat that around. And I'm going to use these little clips. I got these at my local grocery store, actually, in the kind of the hardware department, like the automotive. And then here you can see now I'm going to do the bottom. You can see I'm kind of just folding that over, kind of creating a pleat, adding a little bit more glue, and then folding the rest of this over. And then where that extra fabric is, I'm also just adding a little bit more glue there just to make sure. And then I have those held down. And then I'm going to use my handy dandy paper clip here. I added a little bit of adhesive, and I'm just going to use that to kind of poke down into the spine, that little piece so that the spine piece is covered. And I also have already done the other side of this cover. You can see I'm just tucking it right down there. If you fold the covers kind of back on themselves, it opens up that spine and you can get that fabric down in there really easily. And that's pretty much it for covering it. I decided I wanted to add a little bit of this lace to kind of just have something for that transition between those two pieces of fabric. So I'm going to cut a couple of pieces. I'm cutting them longer than the cover because I'm actually going to wrap them around to the inside just to make sure that they stay nice and secure. So for this part of this, I'm actually going to use some Hallmark 450 Quick Dry liquid adhesive. It's just a little bit of a stronger adhesive, and since I'm only going to run a tiny bead of this because of that lace, I just want to make sure I had something nice and strong. So I'm just kind of laying this down and then getting it nice and even, and I'm going to actually let this dry before I wrap it. But again, this is a quick dry glue, so it won't take very long. I'm going to go ahead and do that to the back, and then I will wrap these pieces around to the inside before I add my end papers. I'm just securing those with these little clips too, just to make sure it's nice and tight while it's drying. And again, that just doesn't take very long doing that on both of the covers. And now I'm going to take these end papers here and I'm going to fold them in half. That just makes it easier to adhere these on in the inside, and this is going to cover up all of those raw edges of the fabric and everything, just make it look nice and neat on the inside. I'm using my bone folder here. And while all of that's drying, I decided I wanted to make a book plate for the cover. So I used my Dymo embossing label maker, and I just spelled out the word Bible, and then I adhered that onto some scrap paper, and then I'm going to trim that down and stick that back behind my my book plate here. I just thought it would be fun to have a little bit of extra interest there on the cover. So I'm just going to trim everything down so that it will fit behind this book plate. And then I have these two little brads that are going to go in there. And I'm just trying to get them in place so I don't forget. I don't want to cover the hole. So I'm just kind of putting them in there to kind of as little placeholders at the moment. And then I will actually take that that little piece of paper, and I'm going to use that same Hallmark 450 Quick Dry glue. The reason I'm using this is here is because this is metal, and so I just want to make sure that I have a really strong adhesive here. And I'm going to add that piece of paper with the embossed word on there, and just trying to get that centered up in there. You can see the little brads in those holes, and they're in there kind of loose, and when you know, technically you would put these through paper and they would be on the back side, but since I'm gluing everything down, I have to have them kind of facing the same direction, if that makes sense. So I'm adding some more glue like down in that hole, and then I'm going to fold these over so that they're both kind of going the same direction, and then I'm just using some pliers to make sure that those are nice and flat so that it will make it just a little bit easier to glue this whole piece down. So I've put quite a bit of adhesive in there also to hold those little brads in place. So I'm just kind of mashing those down with some pliers. I'm trying to keep myself from getting too sticky. And while that is sitting over there drying, I am going to glue in my end papers. So I'm starting with the paper that's like the end paper of the text block. I just find that easier for me. And so I'm going to line this up kind of down in the gutter and just make sure everything is nice and lined up right at the edge, and kind of push that down. I can kind of play with it. That's a good thing about that cocoina glue. You have a minute to kind of maneuver that. I needed a little bit more glue on my corner there. And then I'm applying glue all over this side. I'm going to kind of push this down into the gutter, and then I'm going to put, and then I'm putting those clips back on the corners and also where those pieces of lace are, just to make sure that everything is nice and sturdy and stuck down. And so I'm just burnishing that down with my bone folder, and then I'll do the same exact thing here to the front cover. So after that's had a few minutes to dry, I've taken off those clips, and I'm going to add my little book plate here. I'm just kind of playing around with my positioning on this. In hindsight, I may not have added that lace if I knew I was going to add the book plate, but sometimes I just do things on the fly. So just kind of trying to decide where I want this. I didn't want it in the middle, so I went kind of 2/3 of the way down and then centered it. And I'm going to use that same Hallmark 450 quick dry glue, and I'm going to actually load up the back of this book plate because I want a really good hold on here, and especially because I'm dealing with all the different levels because of that lace. So I will actually kind of put this on here, and then I'm going to hold that in place just for a few minutes just to make sure that it's really good and stuck down. And everything here is relatively dry, but I will stick this under some books for a couple hours. But this is what it looks like when it's finished. So if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. That helps other people find my channel. And until next time, bye.